Today is World Refugees Day, and with the continued violence in northern Nigeria, thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes. But the Nigerian government is pledged to help the refugees by signing on to the United Nations site with Refugees Declaration. Arise correspondent Ponarima Feintola has this report.
This is Hannatu John, a 48-year-old woman. She has lived here in Abuja's biggest internally displaced camp for the last 7 years. She fled her home in Goshe, Borno State, after Boko Haram insurgents kept terrorizing her community.
I was in Goshe village. In 2013, the Boko Haram entered to our village and killed 3 people. And that was the end of that 2013. In 2015, the thing has increased. Many of them, they come to the village, start killing men. And we think as a job that how can the whole village chased by people.
Hannatu is a mother of 3 and a school teacher, but in the refugee camp, she's trying to survive. She has no access to running water or basic sanitation, and her family faces an uncertain future. More than 1,700 people live here, including 500 children who lack access to education.
Most of the children who finish primary schools, they are not in school, and their parents cannot afford to pay their school fees in secondary schools. Now you will see them out of school. Then these are the big challenge. We know education is the background of any community, and this community will suffer a setback again, despite the fact that they suffered and they are still growing towards that setback. That we need to fix that issue so that the community will develop and the entire nation also will be developed.
Since 2009, northern Nigeria has been facing challenges of insecurity. The United Nations says over 3.2 million people are displaced, including over 2.9 million internally displaced. Now, the Nigerian government says with the signing of the Cities and Refugees Declaration, life will be better for the internally displaced persons.
As cities, we are undeniably at the forefront of the refugee crisis, and our communities benefit from their tenacity and courage. Welcoming refugees create opportunities for economic, civic, and social growth. The diversity of experiences and ideas refugee brings spurs creativity and innovation. The MC mentioned a number of high personality persons that were at one time or the other refugees.
If the Nigerian government keeps to his word and implements the city protocols on refugees, people living in IDP camps like this will have more food, education, and health care. For people like Hannatu, life is hard, but at least she feels safe.
It's a high time for us to go home because there is no place like home. Even you kill a cow for me here, I'm a nomadic running from one place to another. There is no place like home. The reason why that we did not go back home up to now, because of place there is no peace. Up to now there is no peace.
The people here say until their communities are safe in northern Nigeria, this may be their home for a long time. Punarmam Feintola, Arise News.
Well, when the camp becomes a long-term home, that's not too good. Well, for more on the World Refugee Day, let's turn to Roland Schönbauer, the spokesperson of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Maybe we should even start with that lady, that respondent in the report there, her hunger for home. And I'm just thinking, exactly how long should any refugee ideally spend in a refugee camp or in a displaced person's camp that they can actually begin to, go home? Maybe you want to start from there.
I agree. This is a key question. How long does this situation of displacement last? Whether it is internal displacement or whether someone is a refugee. And we as UNHCR promote worldwide that countries avoid camps, because camps are artificial structures and have their own dynamics and problems. But sometimes they are inevitable, because what is the situation of people that are displaced? They need protection. If they had security somewhere else, if they could find a safe way of living, they would stay where they are. So they have to flee somewhere, and we are grateful to Nigeria for hosting also Cameroonian refugees that could not stay anywhere and could not just stay with the neighbors, because it was too many at the same time. So that's why the Nigerian government gave us land, and UNHCR managed to build 4 settlements in the south for the Cameroonian refugees. So sometimes, well, a settlement is a bit more open than a camp, but sometimes it's inevitable. But ideally, it's for the shortest possible time. But that brings me to a different point. What is the reason that people are there? It's conflict.
In the first place.
In the conflict, it's in the first place. So ideally, we start there. We tackle the conflicts, meaning the world leaders, and with the current level of displacement, UNHCR appeals to all those that have influence on conflicts, that they finally tackle the conflicts, go to the root of the problem, and then resolve displacement from there, rather than discussing about camps or details of camps.
My interest here, for a refugee, Hannah today, she stayed 7 years in a refugee camp. And another pathetic situation, the camp is squalid, so I don't know how much the UNHCR is helping IDPs, in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. And what kind of intervention, again, do you bring to refugees, particularly those children that have finished primary school and they can proceed, whether for technical education or a normal grammar school?
Fully agree. Education is key for the protection of children and for their development and for their future. And children are hit twice if they are displaced, precisely because they cannot grow properly, cannot develop properly if there is no education. So we are grateful to the Cameroonian government that for refugees, so foreigners that flee to Nigeria, the Nigerian school system is open. They include refugees alongside Nigerian boys and girls in the education system. This is a very progressive, inclusive approach that tackles this disruption that I was just mentioning. UNHCR is supporting this. We help expand schools in the south. But when it comes to IDPs, the roles are a bit different. UNHCR is not leading alone on the IDPs. IDPs are Nigerian citizens. Like anywhere else in the world, IDPs are the citizens of the country where they are displaced in. So the first responsibility is with the government. But as humanitarian community, we are aware that we need to support the government in this situation. And there is a division of labor, which organization does what, and UNHCR focuses on protection. We also
Okay, you know what, we'll just put you on hold. Roland Schönbauer is of the UNHCR. When we return, we will continue our discussion with them. We'll find out exactly what contributions even refugees themselves, make to society, and what governments can do to help them more. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Our guest is Roland Schönbauer, the spokesperson of United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees here in Nigeria. Thank you so much for staying with us. Before I went on that break, I did tease that I would like to know, because, this day is celebrated to draw attention to refugees and maybe what they bring to the table. What exactly are their contributions in spite of the dire situation that they find themselves all over the world, including Nigeria?
A refugee is a person like you and me, who used to have a job, probably, a home, a family, maybe even a car or a company. but with the violence refugees faced, they may have lost everything. And many Cameroonians have exactly this experience. They come with the clothes on their back, period. So then they can bring something to the table, but they need support. They need maybe a bit of training to get a different job. Many were coconut farmers. There's not so many coconut trees in the southeast, so they learn other ways of doing agriculture. But then I've met several that said that the first day after spending a day in the settlement, I went to look for work. So many refugees, that's our experience worldwide, are given like an additional boost of power when they see they have a new perspective, when they see they are safe. But then they need someone that gives them a hand in many cases, because they have been robbed, they have been facing violence and dispossessed of everything. So they have professions like many others. They can be journalists and have been persecuted. They can be farmers, as I mentioned. They can be teachers. They can be tailors. And all this can contribute and even develop markets in remote areas of Nigeria. And that's what is happening despite COVID.
Okay, let me ask you this. How much volunteering, do you have in Nigeria? Because I know it's very key. We got loads of non-governmental organizations. I remember the military high command some few years ago raised the alarm in Borno State, where some of these NGOs had paid 5, 10, 15 years rent ahead. And it's like, oh no, the conflict shouldn't, be over, and the eternally displaced person to stay there. But how much volunteering in all of these do you get?
I cannot give you a number, but yes, it's great to see the solidarity, not just by the government, as you mentioned, the FCT government with the signing of the Cities of Refugees Declaration, or the making public of the pledges at the Global Refugee Forum, as done by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, but also by the population. And we see this, for instance, with some of the Cameroonians that trickle in remote areas of Nigeria, in Taraba State, where there is no humanitarians. And then it's the neighbors there that volunteer. They take them in. I find this fantastic and very commendable. So I cannot put a number to it, but we as UNHCR, when it comes to the IDPs in the Northeast, do work with volunteers and networks that are our eyes and ears on the ground in areas that are not safe for us or even local NGOs to go to. So we do work, and we do see this volunteering and this solidarity, and this is commendable.
Okay, this year's theme is the power of inclusion. Maybe you want to tell us more about that. And is there a refugee crisis globally? With the numbers that one is saying, about 82 million, I'm not sure that's the correct figure. Maybe you want to help us paint the picture of what the refugee situation is globally and, of course, in Nigeria. And maybe you want to address the power of inclusion and what that's all about.
Let's start globally. 82.4 million people are forcibly displaced, according to our latest Global Trends report. That's double the displacement the world had in 2011. So it is really a serious situation. That's why we appeal that conflicts need to be addressed, and this trend needs to be halted, this constant increase. The power of inclusion. Yes, this today, World Refugee Day, we mark with a theme, Together We Can Achieve Anything, because it is the shared experience of refugees, Nigerians, and other people on this planet that we went through COVID, through a lot of uncertainty, and it's not even over. And there we found out that we all are safe only if every one of us is safe and nobody is left behind. And that's inclusion. That's what Nigeria practices with the refugees, and that's what UNHCR also practices with our projects when we for instance, expand school buildings in the southeast. It's not just for refugees, it's for the local children alike. And that's why it's so commendable that Nigeria has pledged also to include refugees in the National Development Plan. It's not realistic to have social and economic development just for one part of the population. And it's very realistic because many of the conflicts, including in the Anglophone regions in Cameroon, unfortunately will not be over in early July. So one has to face realities that some of the refugees are staying longer, and then let's live together and learn together, and together we can achieve anything.
Maybe you should tell us more about this declaration that Nigeria has just signed up to, the United Nations Cities and Refugees Declaration?
With Refugees Declaration?
Okay, tell us more about that.
Is a declaration of solidarity, of inclusion by cities around the world. It's quite an exclusive list of cities, I have to say. New York is there, London, Los Angeles, Madrid, Vienna, and a few African cities. And now Nigeria can be proud that its capital also committed to this inclusion and to this solidarity.
Yeah, I know refugees in certain climes, maybe particularly Europe, that I'm very, very familiar with. When they are settled in proper homes. They are usually reorientated and, absorbed into the culture. You talked about the Cameroonian refugees, well, not much is heard of the Chadian refugees too because of, the border wars sometimes. How, again, do you do this? You don't do this so much in Nigeria. Is it because of paucity of funds, or just the UNHCR is lucky to have good volunteering spirits in the country?
Christian, as you mentioned funds, I have to talk about funds.
Great.
I'm afraid. And yes, both the Cameroonian refugee situation is overshadowed a bit by the situation in the northeast, and the Cameroonians there are also a bit forgotten by some of the donors. The US is supporting us a lot, but we would need considerably more also to cushion the hit of the pandemic, of which we just heard in the World Bank report. Yes, the full integration with our support is a process. We cannot say we will build wonderful homes and everybody will have a job and so on if the economic situation and the funding situation do not allow. But together we can achieve anything, and I've seen refugees that not only looked for work the first day after arriving in Nigeria, but they asked the authorities for land. They said, I want to cultivate land, and then if everybody works together, maybe we brought that refugee together with the authorities said, yes, you can use that land. In the meantime, this woman, it's a businesswoman in reality.
Is funding part of what you ask the authorities, the government, for example?
No,
maybe the Nigerian government?
We ask the industrialized countries and the UNHCR donors to come forward and support our program more. It is currently only at 22% funded, and it's half of the year is over. So we really need more funds. But we do work together with the authorities at different levels, also in the COVID response, and we are pleased also that Benue State and Cross River State included refugees in the vaccine programs. This is also very realistic and very commendable.
That's very
fantastic,
encouraging. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Roland Schönbauer, the spokesperson of the United Nations High Commissioner.